Hey class 10 students, welcome to part 2 chemistry revision for SSLC board. Hope you all have watched part 1 and you have taken best use of part 1 video, right? So now in this part 2 video, I am going to cover the most important aspects or the concepts that you need to concentrate from metals, non-metals chapter, carbon compounds chapter as well as periodic table chapter. Okay, so let us quickly start with what should be concentrated from metals and non-metals to score. So the purpose of these revision videos are to improve your score. Okay, say many people are asking me, ma'am, solve question answer type, but I don't prefer solving question answer type because until and unless you are not okay with the concept, you can't solve in that pattern. Okay, so I want you all to clear with these concepts. That's the reason I planned the revision this way. So this will work out better. Okay, fine. And before you proceed further, one big like. Okay, so those who are watching this video, at least if 0.1% benefit you got from the video, please do like, because one like is equal to 1 mark for me. Okay, so the more you like, the more it will reach. Okay, and share it to the maximum people so that more motivation comes to me to do videos like this, okay, till your examination. So do like, so that is the first thing you have to do. Fine. And now coming to metals and non-metals chapter, so the very first part of the chapter is like properties of metals and properties of non-metals, isn't it? So if question is asked, what are the physical properties of metals, non-metals, or differentiate between metals and non-metals based on physical property, you can use those points like metals are good conductors of electricity, metals are ductile, metals are malleable, metals are sonorous, metals have high melting point, and all the points are opposite to non-metals. Okay, so that's a very pretty simple question I am not discussing here. Okay, but what you need to concentrate is certain exceptions. Okay, say here there are certain metals, okay, like cesium and gallium. CS is cesium, Ga is gallium. These metals have very low melting point. They can even melt on palm. Okay, so this is one point you should know. And second point is alkali metals. Alkali metals in the sense it can be sodium, potassium, lithium, okay, cesium, rubidium and all of them. So these guys have low densities. Remember this. Okay, so this was asked in one of the examination. Okay, so which among them have low densities? Usually alkali metals has low density. They can even cut with a knife, right? So they are so soft that you can cut with a knife, right? And the second point exception is the bromine is the only liquid non-metal. So this is a liquid non-metal, do remember. And mercury is a liquid metal. Okay, so this is the only metal that exists in liquid and this is the only non-metal that exists in liquid. Okay, fine. And now iodine being non-metal, it shows a property called lustrous. Okay, so it has got a metallic luster, it shines. So this is one thing. And the second one is graphite. Okay, so graphite is nothing but your carbon. So we know carbon is non-metal, it is a bad conductor of electricity. But carbon in the form of graphite can conduct electricity. Okay, so this is one more point that you should know, right? So these are the exceptions that you should compulsorily remember, right? So that is all about the physical properties of metals and non-metals. Okay, where to improve your score, you need to remember this. And now what is most important in a chapter is the chemical reactions of metals, guys. Okay, see, already we have discussed a chemical reaction in the previous video, how metals react with acids and displacement reaction. So those two reactions I am not discussing here, but the two important reactions which you should know every point. One is reaction with air. Okay, so that is nothing but oxygen. The other one is reaction with water. Okay, so both concepts are important. And coming to any metal on reaction with oxygen, you will get metallic oxide. Okay, and remember, the nature of metallic oxides are basic in nature. So they'll ask you, what is the nature of metallic oxide? It is basic in nature. Okay, see here, and again different metals react in a different way. Say highly reactive metals. Okay, so highly reactive metals, if you take like, okay, sodium, etc., on reaction with oxygen, you will get easily metallic oxide. Sodium oxide you can easily get. Potassium also on reaction with oxygen, easily you will get potassium oxide. But these reactions are violent. Okay, so they are very, very violent. That is why sodium and potassium are always kept in kerosene, guys. Okay, because they are so much reactive that when they are exposed to atmosphere, quickly they react with oxygen, and you know these reactions do occur with large amount of heat and fire. Okay, so that is why we say the reactions are violent. Violent in the sense dangerous. Okay, so now another very, very important thing is aluminum oxide, okay, and zinc oxide are considered as amphoteric oxide. This is also very, very important concept that you need to concentrate, guys. So they'll ask you, give examples of amphoteric oxide. So you have to mention these two. Okay, so why do you call them as amphoteric oxide? Because amphoteric oxide is the oxide that can react with both acid and base. Okay, so the oxide which has both acidic character and basic character is called as amphoteric oxide. Okay, so now they'll ask you how this amphoteric oxide called aluminum oxide reacts with HCl. Okay, it should react with acid, that is HCl, and it should also react with a base. If I take NaOH as an example, what products? So these chemical equations are very, very important. So what do you get? See, this is here in presence of HCl, this fellow is acting as a base. So whenever base reacts with acid, salt and water. Which is the salt? AlCl3 plus water. In presence of NaOH, now this fellow is acting as acid. Here also salt and water. But which salt? You need to remember sodium aluminate plus H2O. Okay, so this is how amphoteric oxide like aluminum oxide is reacting with acid and base. Okay, so very important chemical reactions. And now if you come to the least reactive metals, the best example is gold, copper and platinum. So they do not react with oxygen. Okay, so they will never react with oxygen to form metal oxide. Okay, why? Because they are inert, they are less reactive, they will not get affected with oxygen. Okay, so this much concept you need to know under this reaction. Okay, so now let us revise reaction of metals with water. Okay, so the most reactive here also, again the most reactive metals like sodium and potassium, when you put them in water, the final products are base and hydrogen gas. So here whenever metals react with water, you know, the final products are base and hydrogen gas you will get commonly. Okay, so potassium also same reaction, but you know it can be with potassium or it can be with sodium. Okay, hydrogen gas is liberated, and these reactions are exothermic. Remember, exothermic means heat is liberated. Heat is there, hydrogen is there, so catches fire. Okay, because of this, whenever sodium potassium dipped in water, fire is observed. Okay, so we say these reactions are violent or dangerous. But calcium and magnesium, okay, so when they are put in water, same, like, bases only you will get. Here you will get calcium hydroxide, here you will get magnesium hydroxide, here also hydrogen gas is liberated. Okay, but these are not exothermic. Okay, so that is the reason these reactions are non-violent. Clear? Okay, so here violent, okay, exothermic, whereas here non-violent, not exothermic. That is why fire catching and all you will not observe. Okay, and here one more point that you have to remember is, this calcium and magnesium, the moment you put them in water, they will float on water. Okay, why? Because of hydrogen gas picks. Okay, it will pick unreacted calcium pieces onto the surface. Okay, hydrogen gas will liberate, no? So that hydrogen gas, while coming up, it will pick the unreacted calcium pieces onto a surface. That is the reason calcium and magnesium floats in water. Okay, so you should know the difference between these highly reactive metals and little moderately reactive metals. So they are reacting in a different way. Okay, and here there are certain metals like iron and aluminium. Okay, so here these metals will react only with steam. Okay, steam is also nothing but H2O only, but here the product is different, guys. So here you will get Fe3O4, okay, plus H2. So remember the formula, it is not Fe2O3, it is Fe3O4 plus H2. Okay, similarly aluminium, when it reacts with steam, you will get Al2O3 plus H2, guys. Okay, so they react with steam, whereas sodium potassium reacts with cold water, calcium also reacts with cold water, but magnesium is slightly less reactive. No, it will only react with hot water. Okay, it cannot react with cold water, and here these guys will react with steam. Okay, so this is very, very important concept, right? So hope these two reactions became clear. So every concept about these two chemical properties is very, very important. Okay, and one more thing you should know. Okay, you should know what actually we mean by alkalis. You know what? Sodium oxide, when you put in water, you will get soluble bases like NaOH. So it is a water soluble basis. Okay, soluble in water. That's why any water soluble bases have got, can be called with another name called alkali. Okay, so the best example for alkali is NaOH, or you can also mention KOH. Okay, so that is all about chemical properties of acid. So two more properties are there: displacement, reaction of acids with metal, which was discussed in the previous part. Okay, fine. And now next important part is ionic bond formation, guys. Okay, so ionic bond formation they will ask you. So first you remember a point that any metal when reacts with the most non-metal, okay, so the formed compound is always ionic in nature. Okay, so the compound formed or the substance formed is called as ionic compound. Okay, so usually if the metals are like group 1 metal like lithium, sodium, potassium, or if the metal is a group 2 metal, okay, like magnesium, calcium, strontium, so when these guys react with 17th group elements or 16th group elements. Which elements will come under 17th group? Fluorine, chlorine, bromine. So here comes oxygen, sulfur, etc. Right? So when these guys react with these guys, the formed compounds between these guys and these guys is always ionic compound, and the bond that is formed between these elements and these elements is always ionic bond. Okay, so they'll mention in the question paper something like this. You have an element X with electronic configuration 2, 8, 1. Okay, and you have an electronic configuration with 2, 8, 5. What type of bond is formed between them? So this is the most common type of question that can be asked. Okay, say first you identify which element. 8 plus 2, 10, 10 plus 1, 11. So atomic number 11 means it is sodium. So which is the element Y? 10 plus, 7 I will put. Okay, so atomic number 17 is for the element Cl. See, sodium comes under this category, most metallic category. Cl comes under most non-metallic category. So when both are combining, what type of bond will be present between them? It's always ionic compound. Okay, so they'll give you some electronic configuration or atomic number. See which element is that. If one element belongs to this or the other element is belonging to this, always between them ionic bond is formed. Okay, so if the two elements are non-metals, okay, if both the elements are non-metals, then covalent bond will be present in them. Okay, if both the elements are metals, no bond is formed. Okay, so that is called as actually metallic bond, which is not there in your syllabus. So that will never be asked. Okay, so if they ask a type of bond between most metallic and most non-metallic, go for ionic bond. If they are asking type of bond between two non-metals, then go for covalent bond. Okay, because many people get confused, like when is ionic bond formed and when is covalent bond formed. That is why I told this. Okay, so next here in this chapter, one more thing you have to concentrate is formation. They will ask you. So how is NaCl formation takes place? Magnesium chloride formation, how does it takes place? Sodium oxide, how does it takes place? Okay, so explain the formation of this or this or this. You know, these type of questions are very common for 3 marks. Okay, so actually you no need to write any sentence in the form of essay type. If you can just mention 3 things, it is more than enough, guys. See here, which is a metal? Sodium, which has got electronic configuration 2, 8, 1. So it will lose 1 electron to become Na plus. Okay, 1 electron it lost to become Na plus. Like that Cl, electronic configuration 2, 8, 7. It will take this 1 electron to become Cl minus. Right? So when Na plus combines with Cl minus, you will get NaCl. But you have to mention this in the form of dot structure. Okay, so how is NaCl formation takes place with the help of dot structure, they will ask you. Okay, so if you can able to write these 2 steps, you write. But which step is more important? The step which I am going to show you now. Sodium dot structure. Since there is only 1 valence electron, 1 dot. Cl dot structure. There are 7 valence electrons, so 7 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So electron transferred from sodium to chlorine. So what do you get? Na. And sodium has got no dot now. That has been transferred to whom? Cl. Cl. Okay, Na plus Cl minus. So this way of showing a dot structure is more important. So how do you show a dot structure for MgCl2 formation? Mg, it has got 2 valence electrons, so 2 dots. 2 Cl's are there, no? 1 Cl right up, another Cl right down. Each Cl has got 7 valence electrons, so 7 dots. Here also 7 dots. Okay, so 1 dot, 1 electron you shift to this fellow, another electron you shift to this fellow. So what do you get? Mg, lost 2 electrons, so plus 2, and Cl, okay, Cl and minus 1. Here, okay, you have to put 2 here. Each Cl has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, like this. Likewise, sodium oxide, 2 sodiums, 1 up, 1 down. Each sodium has got 1 valence electron and oxygen has got 6 valence electron. So, move 1 electron and another sodium gives another electron. So, Na how many are there? 2 are there. You can mention the charge if you want, Na plus. O minus 2 you will mention. Okay, charge for oxygen minus 2 is the charge. Okay, so this is how, you know, when they ask you explain formation with the help of dot structure, these are the key steps. You have to mention the transfer of electrons carefully. If you don't mention, if you don't show proper valence electrons, or if you don't show proper arrow mark, you know, your marks will get cut. So these are very, very important. So next is your properties of ionic compound. Okay, so properties of ionic compound. Okay, so first one, it is soluble in water. This is one property which is important, soluble in water. Okay, and ionic compounds have got high melting point, and ionic compounds in liquid state, or in molten or liquid state is same, or in aqueous state. Okay, so they conduct electricity. So they will conduct electricity. So these are the major property that you have to remember, and they will ask you give reason type of questions also. So why they have high melting point? Because strong attractive forces are there between ions. That is the reason. Okay, so why they conduct electricity in liquid state? Because of the movable ions. Okay, so that is all about the properties of ionic compound. And now coming to the next concept, that occurrence of metals. I know many students feel difficult with this concept. See, focus on these aspects which I tell you. Okay, so the very first thing is you should know the metals which occur in native state. Okay, native state in the sense in their free state without much impurities and etc. And you should know the metals which occur in a combined state in the sense like in combination with some other element. Okay, so the examples of metals which are present in a native state are gold, to some extent mercury, okay, and silver. Okay, so silver and platinum, right? And the metals which are present in a combined state examples are, you know, more reactive elements and then moderately reactive elements like sodium, potassium, iron, zinc and etc. Okay, so these examples try to remember, fact number 1. And later metals, okay, so metals with high reactive elements, metals which are highly reactive like sodium, potassium etc. are always extracted by electrolysis. Understand this, they are extracted with the help of electricity. Okay, and then metals which are moderately reactive, you know, they can either be present as sulfide, okay, or they are present as carbonate. Okay, here sulfide is converted to oxide, carbonate is also converted to oxide as a first step. Okay, conversion of sulfide to oxide is called roasting, whereas conversion of carbonate to oxide is called as calcination. Very important. So they'll ask you the definitions of roasting, calcination, or they'll ask you give differences between roasting, calcination. Okay, so what is roasting? Conversion of sulfide, roasting, yes is there, yes for roasting, yes for sulfide, remember that way. Conversion of sulfide to oxide. Okay, so how do you convert? By heating this in presence of oxygen. Okay, in presence of oxygen roasting is done. Okay, here in the absence of oxygen, or with little amount of oxygen, carbonate is converted to oxide. Okay, so once it got converted to oxide, now that oxygen part has to be removed. That is called as reduction. So reduction is mainly done with the help of reducing agent called carbon. Okay, and after that you will be getting a metal which is called as a crude metal or impure metal. Okay, and now metals which are least reactive. Okay, so they are present as usually sulfides. Okay, and they are converted to oxides, and later oxygen part you will remove, which is called as reduction, and later you will get a pure metal. Okay, so this logic is important, guys, to understand. Before you mug up the examples, this logic is more important. Okay, see here, this sequence I will explain you with mercury. Okay, so mercury is a metal with less reactivity present in the form of sulfide. Mercuric sulfide, which is called as cinnabar. Okay, so now it is present in a sulfide form, no? It should be converted to oxide. How you will convert to oxide? By heating in presence of oxygen. HGS will become HGO and this sulfur will come as sulfur dioxide. And later oxygen part you have to remove. So how do you remove that oxygen part? When you heat it, this oxygen will go away and you will get Hg plus O2, and this is a pure form. See here. No need to mug up. If you know this logic, based on this you can write the chemical equation. Okay, so now this is over. Similarly, copper also, guys. Okay, so but copper, this step is different. See, copper present as copper sulfide. How do you convert to copper oxide here? Right, you will heat with oxygen. So roasting you have done, and later this copper oxide reacts with unreacted copper sulfide. Copper oxide reacts with unreacted copper sulfide. You know, here self reduction happens. Okay, so this itself is the reducing oxidizing agents. So copper you will get plus sulfur dioxide is the product. Okay, so here just by heating you got pure metal, just by heating you separated oxygen, but here just by heating we haven't done. Here we are taking the help of starting material itself. Okay, so these are the examples of reductions, extractions of mercury and copper. Okay, so now let me explain you this here. Zinc is there. Zinc, suppose if it is present as sulfide, what do you do? Okay, you have to convert to zinc oxide. How do you convert to zinc oxide? By heating this with oxygen. Okay, so zinc oxide you got. Now you have to remove this oxygen. So what you will do? Zinc reducing agent you have to use. See here, when I said oxide getting reduction, during the time of reduction you have to use carbon as a reducing agent. So carbon, when I use as a reducing agent, oxygen gets separate, so you will get zinc and oxygen. Okay, so like this, even if you take zinc carbonate. Okay, so what you will do? Calcination you will do. Calcination means you will just heat it, you will get zinc oxide plus this oxygen comes out as carbon dioxide. Now zinc oxide, you have to remove this oxygen. What you will do? You will add reducing agent, oxygen separates, zinc plus carbon monoxide you will get. So these are the chemical reactions you have to write if extraction of zinc is asked. This was asked in the previous year's exam, you have to focus. Okay, and next is a little bit you should know about aluminothermite reaction. Okay, aluminothermite reaction is also very important, guys. It's very simple. Instead of using carbon, if you are using aluminium as a reducing agent, then it is called as aluminothermite reaction. Okay, suppose Fe2O3 is there. I want to remove this oxygen part. I want pure iron. I can use carbon, no doubt, but instead of this, if I use aluminium, what do I get? Fe plus Al2O3. This is called aluminothermite reaction. The speciality of this reaction is large amount of heat is liberated. This is exothermic reaction, guys. this heat is used to join the two harder machine parts, to join the railway track parts, to join the machine part. Large heat is required. To get a large heat, they do perform this reaction. Okay, so that is all about aluminothermite. So now let us talk about refining technique. Okay, so refining, electrolytic refining. Okay, so first understand what actually we mean by electrolytic refining. Everywhere, see, after reduction you got a zinc, after reduction you got iron. All these are not pure metal. There are some impurities after extraction. So to remove those impurities, we are taking the help of electricity, that is called as electrolytic refining. Okay, so electrolytic refining can be done for the elements. Note down, this is important: zinc, silver, lead. Okay, lead you can mention, but the famous elements zinc, silver, copper, these are some famous elements for which electrolytic refining can be used. So in your syllabus for copper it is there. So in electrolytic refining, okay, what we do is we take two rods. So this is like a pure copper rod which I will connect it to a negative terminal of battery, and this is a okay, so according to your textbook only I will draw the diagram. Okay, so here it is. Let me connect it to positive terminal of a battery, and let us imagine this is impure copper rod. Always remember, impure copper rod is taken as anode, pure copper rod is taken as cathode. Okay, so this is a pure copper rod. So here the solution is taken. Which solution is taken? Copper sulfate. For copper, copper sulfate. For silver, silver salt. For if you want to refine zinc, zinc salt you have to take. Okay, so electrolyte is different depending on what metal you are purifying. Okay, so here what happens when electricity is passed, all the pure copper thing is there, no, that will come to a solution. From a solution it will go to this rod, and here it will get deposited. So that's why the size of this rod gradually decreases, the size of this rod gradually increases, and here some soluble impurities will settle here, and this soluble impurities are called as anode mud. Okay, so this is one aspect you have to revise carefully. Okay, and after this, the next aspects you have to concentrate in the chapter is just learn the definitions of alloy. Alloy is what? Mixture of two metals or mixture of one metal and one non-metal, and so different examples like understand the composition of bronze, okay, brass and stainless steel. Okay, so understand the composition of these, study them, and understand the meaning of amalgam. Okay, so if one of the element is mercury in the alloy, then it is called as amalgam, right? And then corrosion. About the corrosion, yes, of course you might have studied in the first chapter, but again understand corrosion and methods to prevent rusting. Okay, so here mainly rusting is what you would have studied, isn't it? So when iron gets exposed to air, it rusts. So the reason for rusting, examples of rusting, okay, methods to prevent rusting, all of them, just their definitions and examples, whatever are there, try to remember. So this chapter is very, very important. I took more time to explain this chapter because this is really important. Careful, you can very nicely score mark from this chapter. Okay, so now immediately let me go for carbon and its compounds. Carbon and its compounds chapter, guys. So this is also the most important chapter only, I can say. Here I will not, I'll not detailedly discuss the easier version. So let me detailedly discuss the reaction part of this. So just initially I'll keep mentioning what you have to focus from this chapter. Focus on dot structures, guys. So here I'll not explain how to write the dot structures and all, because if you want to learn how to write dot structures, just see the concept videos of carbon compounds chapter. Go to the playlist of carbon compound chapter, and there I have neatly, very nicely explained how to write the dot structures. Okay, focus on dot structures and focus on structural isomers here. Okay, structural isomers are very, very important. Examples of structural isomers. Okay, so for structural isomers of butane, 2 are there. Okay, the number of structural isomers of pentane is 3. Okay, so both examples are important here, and you should know how to write the structures of alkanes, alkenes and alkynes. Okay, so you should know their molecular formula, their structural formula and etc. Okay, and their general formula. So hope everybody knows the general formula. Alkanes have got a general formula CnH2n plus 2. These have got a general formula CnH2n, and these have got a general formula CnH2n minus 2. Okay, so they have got carbon-carbon single bond. These guys have got carbon-carbon double bond. They have carbon-carbon triple bond. Okay, so these are something that you should know, and you should also know the structure of benzene. Okay, so benzene structure, benzene molecular formula, that is C6H6. Okay, and you should also know the structure of cyclohexane, guys. Cyclohexane is C6H12. Okay, benzene is unsaturated, whereas cyclohexane is saturated. Okay, and later you should know something about functional groups. This is very important. Functional groups is important. Okay, so whenever you have a functional group OH, then it is called as alcoholic group. Okay, so C double bond OH, in the sense it is a aldehydic group. Only C double bond O, if you have, it is called as ketone group, and C double bond O OH, if you have, it is called carboxylic acid group. Carboxylic acid. This is also called oic acid. This is on, this is al group, this is all group. Okay, so identification type of questions can be asked. Even you should know how to name them, how to write the structures and etc. So all of that is a starting concept which is very, very important, and that is an introductory part of the chapter. Okay, so if you have any doubts among these concepts, please do watch my concept videos of carbon compounds. The link I will provide in the comment section, as well as the entire chapter's playlist I will provide even in the description also. Please go and check it out. So now what little more things I will discuss is the chemical reactions of carbon compounds and the chemical reactions of alcohol and chemical reactions of acetic acid. Okay, so this is where people lose mark, and let us revise them slowly. See, here are the 4 reactions you have to concentrate more. Say first one is combustion. Combustion is nothing but burning in presence of oxygen, right? So any carbon compound, when you treat it with oxygen, products are always carbon dioxide and water. And remember, large amount of heat and sunlight is liberated. That is, the reactions are exothermic. You take ethane and write same products. You take alcohol and write same products. Okay, so products will never change. But 2 points you need to understand is saturated hydrocarbons. SAT means saturated, H means hydrocarbons. Okay, using a shortcut. Saturated hydrocarbons burn with clean blue flame because they undergo complete combustion, whereas unsaturated hydrocarbons are there, no, they will burn with yellow sooty flame. Okay, so this is important to understand. But here, saturated hydrocarbon, if you don't supply good amount of oxygen, they will also burn with yellow flame. Okay, so that is why whenever your holes of the gas burners are blocked at house, you'll observe yellow flame. Okay, because cooking cylinder has got butane, LPG. Remember this point also. your LPG cylinders have got a butane gas. Okay, so butane is a saturated hydrocarbon, mostly burns with a blue flame, but when holes are blocked, since no oxygen supply, that's the reason burns with yellow sooty flame. Okay, so these are some important aspects you need to know under combustion. And coming to addition reactions, always remember addition reactions are shown always by unsaturated hydrocarbons. Okay, so unsaturated hydrocarbons only undergo addition reaction. Okay, suppose you have taken, right, so this is ethene, this is ethene. For this, when I add hydrogen, one H gets added to one carbon, another H gets added to another carbon, so double bond becomes single bond. So 3 hydrogens would be present on each carbon. So what is the product you got? Product you got was ethane, which is a saturated hydrocarbon. Okay, but here you need to use nickel as a catalyst. That's very important. Okay, until and unless you use nickel as a catalyst, reaction cannot happen. One more example for this category is oil, which is actually unsaturated. When you add hydrogen in presence of nickel, you will get ghee, vanaspati ghee, which is nothing but dalda. And this reaction is called as hydrogenation of oil. Hydrogenation means what? Addition of hydrogen to oil. Oil is unsaturated. So you are removing all double bonds. You are making all single bonds in the oil chemical structure. You will get hard, solidified ghee. Okay, fine. So this is the application for addition reaction. Coming to a substitution reaction. Substitution reaction is possible only for saturated hydrocarbon. Remember the trick, S for substitution, S for saturated. Okay, so many people will get confused here. S for substitution, S for saturated, right? You remember this trick, guys. So comment in the comment section how many of you liked this particular trick, and comment in the comment section S for substitution, S for saturated. So when you write, you will never forget. Okay, so don't forget, if you are watching the video till here, at this point, you should definitely comment in the comment section. You are the one who is going to get complete benefit out of my videos. Okay, fine. So here in the saturated hydrocarbons, what actually happens is, when you treat it with chlorine in presence of sunlight, right? So here one of the hydrogen gets substituted with Cl. Substitution means what? In the place of one, another thing comes. In the place of me, if somebody else comes, you say it is substitution. Same thing happens here. In the place of hydrogen, Cl comes. So what do you get? CH3Cl plus HCl. So this is an example for substitution reaction. Okay, fine. And coming to oxidation, here specifically CH3CH2OH, which is nothing but ethanol, right? So this ethanol, when treated with oxidizing agent like KMnO4 or potassium dichromate, oxidation means what? Addition of oxygen. See, 2 hydrogens will be removed. Oxidation means removal of hydrogens also, right? So if I remove 2 hydrogens and when I add 1 oxygen in this place, what do I get? CH3. C, in the place of 2 hydrogens, I will put 1 oxygen, and then this OH is already there. So you will be getting ethanoic acid, or this is also called as acetic acid. Okay, so this is what we call oxidation reaction, and here the role of these guys is they will behave as oxidizing agent. They will behave as oxidizing agent here. Okay, so this is also very, very important. Clear? Fine. Now, that's all about these chemical properties of organic compounds or carbon compounds. So now, let us also revise the chemical reactions of ethanol. Okay, so in the syllabus you have separately, you have to learn about CH3, CH2OH, that is ethanol. So here you remember two equations, guys. One is ethanol reaction with metal. Okay, that is with sodium. The other one is dehydration reaction. So both are important. Dehydration reaction. See here, CH3, CH2OH. Okay, see, ethanol is acidic in nature. Acidic means what? Ability to give H plus. So this H will go out as H plus, not these hydrogens and these hydrogens, but it is this H which will go out as H plus. Okay, so when you treat it with sodium, you know, instead of H, this is going out, so Na comes and occupies its position. So CH3, CH2, O, Na plus H2. So if you have to balance this equation, see 2H2 here, only one H, so you will put 2, right? So the moment you put 2 here, here 2 and here 2. So this is a balanced equation. The name of this salt, see, salt and hydrogen gas, anything which is acid on reaction with metals, you should get salt and hydrogen gas. The same thing you got here. So this salt is named as sodium ethoxide. Ethoxide. See, two carbons in the sense eth, oxygen, oxide. Sodium, sodium. Okay, sodium ethoxide. So this is one important reaction. The other one is dehydration. Say you are taking CH3, CH2, OH, right? So whenever you add concentrated H2SO4, see, concentrated H2SO4 will behave as dehydrating agent. Dehydrating agent. Okay, so what will happen? Removal of water takes place. How is water removal takes place? This OH will come out and one of hydrogen of this carbon will come out. So one hydrogen from here and this OH will come out as water. So the byproduct is water. And what is left out? Here CH2 is left out. Here CH2 is left out. And if you have to show 4 bonds around each carbon, you should definitely put double bond. So what is formed as a product here? Ethene is forming as a product. Okay, so that is all about dehydrating agent, guys. So learn it in the form of a flowchart manner, it becomes easy for you. And coming to ethanoic acid, you know the formula CH3COOH. You have, 4 important reactions to remember. So very, very important. All the 4 are very important. And the first one is same reaction with sodium. Okay, ethanoic acid, since it is an acid, it is this H which is replaced with sodium. So sodium comes in the place of H. So what do you get? CH3COONA plus H2. This is a product. This is called as sodium ethanoate. That was, in case of alcohol, it was sodium ethoxide. But this is sodium ethanoate, you have to say. Okay, fine. And now reaction with sodium carbonate. So same thing here, since it is an acid. Okay, so whenever it reacts with sodium carbonate or sodium bicarbonate, you will get salt plus carbon dioxide plus water. Which is the salt you will get? Same salt you will get. Same salt you will get here also. Okay, since this fellow is acidic, it's a very common property of an acid that it can react with the metals. It can also react with metal carbonate. Okay, so when it reacts with metal like sodium, you get this salt and hydrogen gas. When this fellow reacts with sodium carbonate or sodium bicarbonate, you get salt, carbon dioxide, water. Which is salt? The same salt you will get. Okay, so these are the 2 important reactions. And now coming to third one. So third one is very, very important, esterification reaction. So they'll ask you, what is esterification reaction? Formation of esters is called as esterification reaction. Okay, so now let me mention the chemical equation for that. So it's very simple. Most of the students feel difficult to write this reaction, but I will tell you in a easiest way. Listen properly. You take acetic acid, you take ethanoic acid formula, CH3 COOH, right? If I elaborate COOH, this is how I'll write COOH. And you take alcohol. So it is the reaction between ethanoic acid and ethanol. Ethanol can be commonly called as alcohol also. Okay. So what is our alcohol? CH3 CH2OH is the formula, no? The same thing ulta I will write. OH I will mention this side. Okay. OH I will mention this side. Then what is there here? CH2. And what is there here? CH3. Same thing I wrote ulta just to show the reaction in an easy way. Now what will happen? This OH will come out along with this H. So that means water molecule is coming outside. So this water molecule removal takes place in presence of concentrated H2SO4. Okay, got to know? So now this piece, join it with this piece. So what is left out? If I remove OH, what is left out? CH3, C double bond O. Bond, put a bond, put a connection between this carbon and this O. What is left out here? O is left out. H has gone, no, with this OH as water. So this O. And what is there here? CH2. What is there here? CH3. That's it. This is the formula of ester. Nothing much. This is the formula of ester. Maybe in your textbook, this piece might have mentioned here, this piece might have mentioned that, but no problem, no problem. You can write it in either ways. This is also correct. Along with that, what you have got? Water. Okay, esters are sweet smelling compounds. Do remember the nature of ester. Okay, and the last reaction is saponification reaction. Okay, saponification reaction is opposite, guys. You are taking this ester, okay, CH3, same ester I will take as it is, CH3O, CH2, CH3. What I will do is I will add NaOH. Okay, so when I add NaOH, bond will break and I will get back these substances. Wapas, the reactants I will get. Okay, product, whatever product we got in the esterification, that we are writing as a reactant. Whatever reactants we wrote in the esterification, that we are writing as products. That's it. Okay, so what are the products here? Acetic acid, that is CH3, COOH plus ethanol, CH3, CH2OH, that's it. But one thing what you will do is, since it is NaOH, you have to show Na in one of the product. Instead of this H, show Na. That's it. That is the only change you make. Okay, see, in esterification, whatever product you got, that you mentioned as reactant. Whatever reactants that you had written under esterification, that you mentioned as product. That's it. Okay, but only changes here Na. In acetic acid, instead of H, Na should come. That's it. Okay, easy, no? So this and this is exactly opposite. Compare and study so that you will remember easily. Okay, so this much concept you should remember, and along with that, don't forget to read cleansing action of soap. Okay, so this I will not elaborately explain because this is a common question. If you want to know how to write the answer for this, I will share a video under description. Do check it out. Okay, so in that video, probably I have explained how to write the points for cleansing action of soap. Okay, so there is a video I will upload. Application questions on carbon compounds, periodic table, application questions on periodic table. Both links I will give in the comment section as well as in the description. You can go to those videos and check it out. Okay, so cleansing action of soap, if it is asked, it will be asked for 3 marks. And definition, differences between soaps and detergents. Okay, differences between soaps and detergents is also very important. Okay, so they'll ask you why detergent work in soft water, why soaps do not work in hard water, like that scum formation and everything you have to learn. Why the scum will form, what is the chemical formula of scum, okay, why detergents are working under hard water, so what would happen. So all of that last part is also important only. So if this is asked directly, that can be asked for 3 marks. All miscellany formation and everything you have to show it in the answer. Okay, and coming to the periodic table, that is classification of elements of periodic table, see video link I will give in the description, do watch that. Okay, so with that, complete revision on chemistry will be over for you. Okay, so hope you liked the content. If you have liked and if you have enjoyed the content, just comment in the comment section I enjoyed and tell me my chemistry revision is over. Okay, I mean your chemistry revision, if it is over along with me, you comment in the comment section that your revision is over. Or if you have any doubts relating to chemistry, you put it in the comment section. So if it is a valid doubt or reasonable doubt, in the next video I will discuss. Okay, so thank you so much, and definitely 1 like is equal to 1 mark. Okay, so do like the video, do share the video, this is very very important. Okay, so to motivate me, or if you want to expect more number of videos, sharing is very very important. Okay, so thank you so much, all the best, keep learning.